Hey, Dr. Kelly Starrett with the Ready State. Want to talk about a congested ankle. Now, when we mean congestion, what we're talking about is there's obviously some swelling or effusion in the ankle. We don't know what the mechanism is for this thing. Recently, one of my friends was traveling through a very austere place, and the next day, wasn't sure what happened, but his ankle was very big. And one of the things that we talk about all the time is how would I manage a congestion? Now, if you've turned your ankle, or for some reason end up and it's swollen, one of the things that we want to know is, for you to know is right away is, hey, should I go get an x-ray? Is this very serious? And there are some simple rules called the Ottawa Rules around this. And the first of the Ottawa Rules is, can you weight bear on it? Can you take 3 or 4 steps? And if you can't, that's usually a pretty good indication that there's something else going on. Also, there's a few other places that we should be aware of if they're point tender, because if you're moving really quickly and you've got pain in these areas, they indicate that maybe you should get an x-ray taken. And one of the places is right on the inside of the ankle bone. So if you're point tender on the inside of the ankle bone, go get a picture. If you find that you're point tender on the outside of the ankle bone, guess what? Go get a picture. Also, on the outside of your foot right here, if you find yourself point tender on the outside of the foot, you push on and it hurts, go get an x-ray. Go get a picture. But if not, swelling, congestion is on you. And what you'll see here is our friend traveling with a voodoo floss band. And one of the things that we love is being able to manage a swollen joint. Now, in the parlance of our sort of language and how we're thinking about this, we take a swollen joint very seriously, because one of the things that happens is that joint is swollen and effused or congested. One of the things that happens is it really shuts down the body's proprioception. So how am I able to sort of understand where I am in space, which is really what the shorthand is for proprioception. And when the swollen joint is effused and sort of distorted, the brain doesn't have a really good idea of what's happening, and that creates a lot more opportunity for other instability and other trauma or other kind of missteps. So one of the things that we're looking at is that when we see an athlete shows up at the gym with some congestion, we are absolutely going to manage that thing, even if it's pain-free. And oftentimes, these things are pain-free. So what we asked Jim to do was kind of take an active approach. How do we know it wasn't serious? Well, we talked him through quickly these quick tests, and he was like, yeah, I can still walk on it. But one of the things that we did was we wrapped from the foot, from the toes, up as far as possible, starting from the limb, working our way up to the heart. And the idea here is that you can basically compress with a voodoo floss band upwards of 10 to 12 times a day. You'll notice that because, remember, that the lymphatic system is the mechanism by which your body is removing congestion, that we always have sort of 2 big mechanisms to address that. We can use the muscle contraction to do what? To pump out the lymphatics. This is a system that's integrated into our movement system. So when I move, I decongest. So active movement is always better. So even if I had a little congestion, if I could spin or walk easily or engage in some pain-free motions, that's always going to be my first bet. Movement, movement, movement. That's the way my body is going to decongest itself. Now, the problem with an ankle sprain, or excuse me, a congested ankle, is that it's at the bottom of a gravity well, which means that your body is always fighting gravity, and that this spot all the way down at the ankle is as far away from my heart as it can be kind of physically on the body. We also have a big band of connective tissue here, which keeps the Achilles and a lot of the musculature and tendons of the ankle from bowstringing. And this band of connective tissue is called a retinaculum. So one of the things that happens is that I may have congestion in the foot, right, around for some reason, and what ends up happening is that retinaculum can trap and make it even more difficult for me to pump that out. So while we're not big fans of icing, because we find that it's not very effective at sort of eliminating the congestion problem or facilitating my body's healing response, we do find that gravity still works very well. So here we have our friend Jim. He's compressed 10 times a day. He's getting his foot up every chance he had. And what ended up happening, he was able to manage his congestion. So again, 50% tension, 50% overlap in the band, working from foot up, thinking, hey, I can wrap this thing as many times a day as I need, and I can always use gravity to better effect. We also really do recommend that if you're going on an adventure, that you take your Mark Pro device. And I just got out of a very, very long bike ride, and we take the Mark Pro with us. Why? Because one of the problems with just this is that he can only do this when he has an opportunity to stop, when he has an opportunity to lay down and get his feet up, and when he's sleeping, we're missing huge swaths of time, potentially, or in the car, where he doesn't have a chance to actively recover. And so what we use is the Surrogate for activity, which is our Mark Pro. And the idea here, if you have congestion in the foot or ankle, there's really a couple simple ways to do it. You can either think about pushing swelling or congestion or pulling swelling congestion, because it really doesn't matter. Your brain recognizes this as ultimately as a closed loop physiologic system. So if you're pulling congestion through the lymphatics or pushing, it doesn't matter. So ultimately what we're going to talk about is pad placement with the Mark Pro, which allows us to have pain-free motion in a congested area. So if I have some congestion here and it's a little painful, let's set up the pads either on the shin or on the calf or even the quadriceps, because ultimately the whole thing is going to drain into the superior vena cava in my heart. So all of the lymphatics are coming back into the circulatory system near the heart. So it doesn't matter. Even if you pumped and congested your quadriceps, it would still make the leg and improve the health and tissues of the leg. So what we're really after is trying to get a long muscle, non-fatiguing muscle contraction that doesn't irritate a congested area. Pump that thing, ride that thing. Typically when we have a congestion in an area, if we feel like if we can't get ahead of that in 12 hours, we're really behind. So again, this is about, hey, I have a joint that seems swollen or puffy. We want to manage that thing. What are the tools that I have right away? Well, if I have access to a voodoo floss band and can compress, let's do that. Can I get my foot up? Let's do that. If I have a Mark Pro, and you should travel with your Mark Pro, absolutely, this is a really, really powerful triad of gravity, of compression, mechanical compression, and autogenic compression, my body creating compression to manage a congested tissue. Because something that turns out to be congested from just overuse or whatever, right? It's not emergent, doesn't need a doctor, and more importantly, he needs to be able to manage this so he doesn't ruin his vacation. This is how we think about Mark Pro in the greater scheme of healthy tissues and decongestion.